Hi everyone, welcome back to Coding with Liz. In today's video, we're doing a deep dive into SQL Aggregate Functions. If you've ever wanted to answer questions like, how many customers do we have? What's the total revenue? What's the average age? What's the highest or lowest value in a column? These are all answered using aggregate functions. By the end of this video, you'll understand what aggregate functions actually do, the difference between count asterisk and count column, how null values affect results, and how these functions work with and without group by. Let's get into it. What are aggregate functions? Aggregate functions perform a calculation on multiple rows and return one single value. Instead of seeing every row, you get a summary. Common aggregate functions include count, sum, average, min, and max. Count asterisk counts every single row in the table. It does not care what's inside the columns, it just counts rows. Using this function, we can answer questions like, how many customers do we have? Here's an example of how we would use this query. It is very important to understand the difference between count asterisk and count column. Here's an example of this query. This counts only rows where email is not null. That means count asterisk counts all rows, and count column counts only non-null values in that column. If a column has missing values, your count could be different. The sum function adds up all numeric values in a column. It is important to note that sum only works on numeric columns, and null values are ignored. We can use the sum function to answer the question, what is the total revenue? We can run this query. If two customers have null in total spent, they are not included in the sum. Average calculates the average of non-null values. We can use the average function to answer questions like, what is the average age? To answer this question, we can use the query that you see on screen. It is very important to note, if there are no null values, they are excluded from the calculation. SQL does not treat null as 0. That's a common beginner misconception. Min calculates the smallest value, while max calculates the largest value. They work on numbers, dates, and even text. We can use max to answer the question, what is the highest amount spent? To answer this question, we can write the query that you see on screen. We can also use min to answer the question, what is the youngest customer age? To answer this question, we can use the query on screen. Now let's level up. Instead of summarizing the entire table, we can summarize per group. We can answer the question, how many customers per state, using this query. Now SQL first groups rows by state, and then counts within each group. We can answer the question, average spending per state, using this query on screen. This is how real data analysts think. Now it is important to address common beginner mistakes. The first mistake is selecting a column without grouping it. Here is an example of a query that would not work. This causes an error because first you selected a city, but you didn't group by city, and city isn't inside an aggregate function. Every column in select must either be grouped or be aggregated. The second mistake is forgetting about null values. Remember, count column ignores null, sum ignores null, average ignores null, and min and max ignore null. SQL never treats null as 0. If this video helped you understand aggregate functions more clearly, make sure to stay tuned for the next video with Coding with Liz. Next up, we are going to discuss aliasing within SQL. See you in the next one.